Greetings to all who are listening this morning. It's Friday morning, and as we've been living our lives in this past week, one thing that keeps on coming to mind is there's just a lot of anxiety out there, and I think that even affects us, doesn't it? Anxiety, restlessness, and what's around the corner. Perhaps there's unknowns that we face. And this morning, the reading has to do with the root of Jesse. And really it talks about the reign of Christ. And it's only when he reigns in our hearts do we come to know and experience that true peace. There is no other peace except the peace of Christ, which comes through faith in him. And so what I'd like to do this morning is go to Isaiah 11, verses 1 through 10. This is the passage suggested on day 10 of this booklet, Behold Your King, Isaiah 11, verses 1 through 10. And then we have the comparable reading from Matthew 2, verses 1 through 12. And that's also, again, from the Children's Story Bible book, which gives a nice rendition of the Magi. So Isaiah 11, 1 through 10. Beautiful words. Speaking of the Christ to come, 700 years beforehand, Isaiah prophesies. And there shall come forth a rod, or you could say a shoot, from the stem of Jesse, and a branch shall grow out of his roots, referring to Christ. The Spirit of the Lord shall rest upon him, the Spirit of wisdom and understanding, the Spirit of counsel and might, the Spirit of knowledge and the fear of the Lord. And his delight is in the fear of the Lord. And he shall not judge by the sight of his eyes, nor decide by the hearing of his ears. But with righteousness he shall judge the poor, and decide with equity for the meek of the earth. He shall strike the earth with the rod of his mouth, and with the breath of his lips he shall slay the wicked. Righteousness shall be the belt of his loins, and faithfulness the belt of his waist. The wolf also shall dwell with the lamb. The leopard shall lie down with the young goat. The calf and the young lion and the fatling together, and a little child shall lead them. What beautiful imagery, eh? One of peace and harmony. The cow and the bear shall graze. Their young ones shall lie down together. The lion shall eat straw like the ox. The nursing child shall play by the cobra's hole, and the weaned child shall put his hand in the viper's den. They shall not hurt nor destroy in all my holy mountain, for the earth shall be full of the knowledge of the Lord, as the waters cover the sea. And in that day there shall be a root of Jesse, who shall stand as a banner to the people, for the Gentiles shall seek him, and his resting place shall be glorious. That's Isaiah 11, 1 through 10. And again, he speaks about the Gentiles, and the Magi were such Gentiles who came to visit the root of Jesse, and how the root of Jesse even takes place in their hearts. Beautiful as you hear this story.
Once upon a time, far in the east, lived some wise old men. They had read many big books. They were wise and clever. At night, they liked to look up at the stars because they are so beautiful. God made them, and he lets them shine every night, they said. God is wiser than all men. One night, as they watched the stars, they saw a new one. It was a star they had never seen before. What a big star it was, and how brightly it shone. It seemed to be the king of all the other stars. The wise men sat watching it in glad surprise. A new star, they said. Do you know what it means? It means a child has been born somewhere, and it's such a beautiful star. It must mean the child is very wealthy and important. It must be the child of a king. For a long time, they watched the star and talked about this royal child. They could not think of anything else. Then one of them said, "Do you know what we will do? We'll try to find that little king, and when we find him, we will kneel before him. There has never been so rich and mighty a king on this earth before." So it was that the wise men started out to look for the newborn king. Their servants went to fetch the camels from the barn, and the wise men prepared beautiful, expensive gifts. They even took a chest of gold. Then they mounted their camels and off they went, looking for the newborn baby. It was a long trip over high mountains and through great forests. They had to ride through strange lands where they had never been before. The young king for whom they were looking must be in this land. But how could they find him? The wise men rode through that land of the Jews until they came to the great city of Jerusalem. Jerusalem was the biggest city in all the land. Everywhere they went, they asked the people, "Where is the King of the Jews? We have seen his star in the east and have come to kneel before him." None of the people knew anything about it. The wise men rode through Jerusalem until finally they came to the palace of the king. Perhaps the newborn king would be there. But no, there was no young king in the palace. There was only an old king whose name was Herod. King Herod was very cruel and selfish, and when he heard what the wise men wanted, he was alarmed. How was it that the wise men were looking for the king of the Jews? "I am the king," thought Herod, "and I want to remain the king. These men aren't looking for me, though. Could there possibly be another king? A young king who has just been born? This cannot be, for I want to reign alone. Is it possible the Savior has been born, for whom the people have waited so long?" Herod was upset by these thoughts, for he was a wicked king who wanted to remain the ruler even though he was not a worthy man. "I must know where I can find him," he thought, "and then I had better kill him. This child must not become the king, for I want to remain on the throne." Wicked King Herod had the scribes come to the palace. These men were the ones who knew all about the Bible. So he asked them, "Do you know where the Savior will be born?" Of course they could tell him this. "He will be born in Bethlehem, O king, for it has been written in the Bible." "Thank you," said the king. "I will remember this." Then the king secretly called the wise men. He was most friendly and kind as he asked, "When did you see this beautiful star you told about?" "O king, it was a long time ago," they answered. "We first saw it when we were still in our own country, far away. We have been looking for the young king a long time, but we have not been able to find him." "Then I will help you," said King Herod. "He is in Bethlehem. Go there quickly and look. When you have found him, come and tell me, for I also want to go to kneel before him." "Thou liar! I also want to kneel before him," he had said, but he really wanted to murder the Christ, that child. The wise men did not know the king was so wicked, and they quickly went on their way to Bethlehem. It was evening once again, and the sun went down. The stars began to shine once more, and suddenly the wise men saw the star again. How happy they were! There was that beautiful star which they had seen before, ahead of them in the sky. It was leading them to Bethlehem. They followed the star until it stopped, and then they got down off their camels. They were in front of a little house, and the star shone right above them. The wise men opened the door and went inside. Inside the house lived Joseph and Mary and little baby Jesus. He looked like any other baby, but the wise men knew he was no ordinary child. This was the young king for whom they had looked for such a long time. He was the one who would someday be the wealthiest and mightiest king in the whole world. Reverently, they kneeled before him. "O King Jesus," they said, "how glad we are to have found you." Then they brought in their presents and laid them before him. There was a chest of gold, a jar full of incense, and a box of myrrh. They were beautiful and expensive gifts, but the wise men gave them to Jesus gladly, for their hearts were full of joy and happiness. That night they slept in Bethlehem, and each of them had a dream. The wise men all had the same dream. In it they heard a voice which told them, "Listen well. You must not go back to King Herod, for he is a cruel man. He does not wish to kneel before the little king at all. He wants to hurt him instead." It was the voice of God which told them those things. So the wise men listened carefully. When they left in the morning, they did not go back to King Herod or even near Jerusalem. They took another road back to their own country and left the bad king to wait alone in his palace. After this, the wise men were happy for all of their lives, for they had found the King Jesus.
Wow. They found the King Jesus. And by the grace of God, we come to find him too. Of course, he finds us, but we find him and we come to know him as the true king, a real king, a king who loves his people. There's a couple paragraphs here from Behold Your King. It does a masterful job in terms of relating the two passages together from Isaiah 11 and Matthew chapter 2. The shoot of Jesse, promised in Isaiah, had taken root and was residing in Bethlehem. He was sitting on the lap of his mother when the wise men arrived to visit him. The wise men worshiped him despite being a little boy, proving that they knew Jesus was the true King of the Jews. After offering him their gifts, they returned to their home in the east. The promised shoot of Jesse had now taken root in their hearts. Just as a root system begins small but spreads and winds itself deep into the earth, so too the news of Jesus' coming was beginning to spread, and soon his fame would be brought to all nations of the earth. Soon after Jesus ascended into heaven, the book of Acts tells us that the gospel was already reaching the ends of the known world. Because of King Jesus, we are commissioned to continue to spread the good news of his triumph over his enemies. We are commissioned to cultivate that root system until Jesus comes again. Wow, that's the greater kingdom, isn't it? Right? That Jesus has come. He has come to bring his kingdom. And we can sing of that too. Joy to the world. In the back of our little booklet here, Behold Your King. We have the song Joy to the World. And the next song for the next day, for Monday, is Hark the Herald Angels Sing. Now we sing Joy to the World. Joy to the world, the Lord is come. Let earth receive her King. Let every heart prepare him room. And heaven and nature sing, and heaven and nature sing, and heaven and nature sing. Joy to the earth, the Savior reigns. Let men their songs employ, while fields and floods, rocks, hills, and plains repeat the sounding joy. Repeat the sounding joy. Repeat, repeat the sounding joy. No more let sins and sorrows grow, nor thorns infest the ground. He comes to make his blessings flow, far as the curse is found, far as the curse is found, far as the curse is found. He rules the world with truth and grace, and makes the nations prove the glories of his righteousness, wonders of his love, and wonders of his love, and wonders of his love. Yes, behold your king, the root of Jesse.